So here's the first story. It is about the tiger and the strawberry. So this is an ancient story known as a koan, and a koan is another word for a poem, but of course it's not exactly a poem. But it's an interesting analogy for how we live in this particular time. So, once upon a time, as a man was walking through a forest, he saw a tiger peering out at him from the underbush. And as the man turned to run, he heard the tiger spring after him to give chase. Barely ahead of the tiger, running for his life, our hero came to the edge of a steep cliff. Clinging onto a strong vine, the man climbed over the cliff edge just as the tiger was about to pounce. Hanging over the side of the cliff, with the hungry tiger pacing about him, the man looked down and was dismayed to see another tiger stalking the ravine far below. Just then, a tiny mouse darted out from a crack in the cliff face above him and began to chew at the vine. At that precise moment, the man noticed a patch of wild strawberries growing from a clump of earth near where he dangled. Reaching out, he plucked one of them. It was plump and it was perfectly ripe, warmed by the sunshine. He propped the strawberry into his mouth. It was perfectly delicious. The end. So that story doesn't have the the tones of a typical story, and that's what I love about the Zen stories. So the thing is, the question that most people have is, what happened to the man? Everybody wants to know what happened to the man, because we don't see life as this in the totality as man being part of nature, but we're wondering what happened to the man because we're people. We side with nobody asked what happened to the strawberry. Obviously, it got eaten, but nobody sits and says, "Oh, did the other strawberry live?" Right? Or did the tigers get to eat? Right? We don't think about that. We're just thinking about the man and whether the man lived or not, and that's our conditioned bias. We're just caring about who survives and who dies because we associate with the man and put ourselves in that situation. The other symbolism here is of the mouse chewing, knowing at the bottom, basically making his end even near, represents time. Time chews away at us, and the tigers represent all these threats and all these struggles that we face on a daily basis, right? So, and most societies have been heavily influenced by Hollywood and by the fairy tales from Disney. So modern tastes generally run more towards the happy ending. We want the mouse to speak, perhaps offer to save the man in some magical bargain. We want the strawberry to transform the man into a bird who flies away to safety. All of these fairy tales, right? But just most of all, we can't stand the ending of the tiger and the strawberry. And the most burning question that we have is, what happens to the man? Well, what happens to the man? We know that he dies. That he dies relishing his last moments on earth is one of the possible morals of the story, right? So the man's situation with tigers menacing him from all sides, hanging on for dear life from one moment to the next, is our reality. In reality, in 2023, we control nothing. We're currently clinging to a massive ball of molten iron and changes all over the place. In reality, we are all hurtling through space on a giant mass held together in this planet, right? The very fact that we exist is also a statistical impossibility if you've researched the facts of how we survive and genetic material and all the rest of it. And then we have natural disasters, we have war, we have the death, the heat, the deaths going on. Everything is just we shouldn't be here at all, really. And considering that we are here, and considering that we really won't be around all that long, even if we die of extreme old age, it's one of these things. There's no staying off that cliff. There's no avoiding those tigers forever, right? The mouse of inexorable time is chewing away at our lifeline moment by moment. The only choice is whether or not we will notice, eat, and enjoy the strawberry. Because whether we enjoy it or ignore it, we're still getting eaten by that tiger. So the surety of this knowledge gets away from us. We get too busy anticipating the uncertainties of tomorrow, lamenting the shortcomings of yesterday. In the present moment, the knowledge that such moments are not infinite, and no additional moments are promised is with us. So we have to savor and live moment by moment, because this is the inevitable end of time, and it's something that we're almost programmed not to want, and that's why the Hollywood themes really appeal to us. That life will always be strawberries. There'll always be someone coming to save us, and that everything will always be blissful and joyful. However, it doesn't mean that nobody's coming to save you either. It's just that you have to recognize that you will age, things will fall apart, people will die, all the rest of it, and it's part of this beautiful creation. Like Eckhart Tolle was saying, I was watching a movie, and I think it was a 100-year-old movie, something, yeah, a 100-year-old movie, and he said, I was thinking about that every single one of those characters in that movie is dead. So it's not really, it's this recognition of life which is so difficult for us, but there is a sweetness to accepting the inevitability of life, because it is uncontrollable, and we letting go and enjoying the present moment, because that's all we can do, frees us to not try to control every situation, and have this false illusion that the ending has to be this, as every Hollywood movie portrays. And they don't become blockbusters if the hero doesn't get saved, right? Because that's how we've been programmed in many ways. And so, but it doesn't have to be that the hero walks away into the sunset and everything is solved. But what resonates with me is what Joseph Campbell talks about in The Hero's Journey. It's the journey inwardly. What I would love, and that is my hope, yet I can't insist on it, is that I would uncover myself inwardly by the time I pass on, so that I would reach my full realization of whatever that may be. And it's not the Western concept of your full potential, so that you've made enough money and you've had the most babies and you've got the biggest house. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's a lot more deeper than that. What do you think about that? All our focus is on the past and the future, and very little is focused on the present. And I think that's the lesson, is about gaining awareness of the present moment, and utilizing it. So there's a wonderful poem that I'll finish off this particular topic about the tiger. I think it's a he says, tigers above, tigers below, this is actually the predicament that we are always in terms of our birth and death. Each moment is just what it is. It might be the only moment of our life. It might be the only strawberry we'll ever eat. We could get depressed about it, or we could finally appreciate it and delight in the preciousness of every single moment of our life. And that's wonderful. There's another story which I've related many times in one of my posts as well, about the dying Zen master's request for a piece of cake, and it's in my book as well. And Maria, you know it very well. And yesterday morning, I witnessed the sunrise, and that poem came to me, and I said, it's incredible. I get to witness the sunrise one more time, and it's such a precious gift. And it's almost like you have to force yourself to recognize that this may be the last sunrise, and to soak it up as much as possible. And someone came onto the LinkedIn post and said he sees that poem slightly differently, which is not about the present moment, is that appreciating one more slice of cake in this body, in this lifetime, in this realm of existence. That cake is delicious and you want another slice of it before you go. And it's the same thing. It's a running theme. And there's another theme about the woman that I spoke about last week, who was a nun as well. And she said, all I did was see 66 years of sunrises. That's how she gauged her life. There's something so magnificent about the sunset and the sunrise that shakes us out of our minds and returns us to the infinite nature of our existence and of life. And again, in this story about the strawberry, the focus was on the strawberry. The detail was given about how juicy and about how tasty the strawberry was and how firm it was. And that was the delight. It's like in all this chaos, while the building is falling down and everything's going into ruins, if you can just take that strawberry and savor it and taste it with full awareness, then you've lived life, because this moment has been lived. And one moment of that sweetness is enough if you want to be um, if you want to be content. Of course, you could say, "Oh, that was great, but tomorrow I'm coming out here," and I did. And today I went to watch the sunrise, and it was good, but it wasn't as good as yesterday. So I'm glad I took in the sunrise yesterday morning and soaked it up the way that I did. And if we can, and it's a practice, I keep on telling my clients and I tell my coaches that it's really a practice. It's not something you hear and you say, "Oh, right, yeah, yeah, present moment, I got that tick box," and you're done. No, you got to wake up in the morning and say, "Today, I shall live in the moment." And you go moment by moment, moment by moment. And if you can do that, it just becomes incredible. And if you try it out for a day, it is magnificent. And so, I don't know if many of you heard of Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer was describing an incident that happened 25 or 30 years ago in his life. So he said, 25 or 30 years ago, it was a bright sunny day. It was a Tuesday morning. The weather was this much. This was the time. I was over here. I was doing that. I had a red car. And he was just going on with such detail of something that happened 25 or 30 years ago. And I said to my friend, I said, how the hell did he remember so much detail? And he said, because he was anchored in that moment so deeply that it made a profound impact on his life. Now, if you look at our lives, the things that make profound impacts are extreme moments of joy or extreme moments of pain or sadness that we remember and we can replay with tremendous detail. But imagine you could bring that same awareness to every moment. You would be able to anchor every single moment. And I practice this, and it's true. And I do this with my clients, and they're amazed at how I remember these details, because I sit there and I moment by moment anchor into the moment. And I'm taking snapshots of everything that's going around at a million bytes per second. And I'm processing that and I'm capturing that unconsciously, or I'm rooting myself in that moment. And so people say, well, I tell them, well, you remember you mentioned this about that? And they said, how do you remember? Because I was there, I was present, I was there, and I was there fully. And so that is so powerful. And of course, myself included, we get swayed by that. So Maria, thank you for adding that on. So it is a practice, and it's not a catchy quote that you read online. Everything's in the present moment, and you flatter yourself and you say, yes, you idiot, you should focus on the present moment. It doesn't happen like that. So don't kid yourselves. It is a practice, and it requires, first of all, an active intention saying, I choose to exist like this, even it's for today. And a very, very important point, and this is a good place to add in another koan. So the student was sitting with the master near to in a forest, and the student approached the master and said to the master while they were meditating, "Master, how do I enter Zen? In other words, how do I enter that state of stillness?" And the master said, "Can you hear that waterfall?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Enter Zen through there." So then the man said, "All right." So he began meditating at that moment. A few moments later, he said, "Master, if there was no waterfall there, where would I enter Zen from then?" And the master said, "You would enter Zen from there." So what the master is saying, wherever you are in that moment is when you enter the present moment. So many people get tricked by the mind and they say, next week, Tuesday at 7 o'clock, I will begin practicing meditation. I will, reduce the carbs, and then I will do this and take a run and all that kind of stuff, and you put all this expectation on the future and you never do it. And wonderful thing that you learn from the book on Atomic Habits is that you take on the form of the identity of the person that you want to be. You don't say, I will become healthier. You say, I am healthier. And it becomes in present moment entering of the now. Is that I wake up at 5 in the morning and I meditate. So it becomes something that you're doing now. And so if you say, I want to practice moment by moment awareness, you start now. In this moment, you start now, because the gateway is always now. And the mind likes to create future, because there isn't a future. Even the future is now, but we won't get into that. However, the secret to anything you want to do is the now, like right now. You assume the identity of the thing and the person that you want to do right now. That's something very important to mention as well. So, anybody wants to say something, you can. I had a lovely message from a lady. I'm not sure if she's on the call, but she was driving three of her children to to somewhere, and she said, I heard you in the radio in the car. It was so nice. It reminded me of old times when people used to call in on the radio and tune in. And she said it really helped me with my drive home. And I thought, oh well, that's so beautiful to hear. So I was very flattered by that, to hear that as well. Yes, Haman, was that you that was in the car? Oh, okay. With the same boys in the car. Oh wow, wow. Okay, well that's amazing. I was like looking. There's so many little figures on the screen. I couldn't figure out. Well, that's beautiful. Look the moment. Look at the moment. It presented itself. Synchronicity. Incredible. How wonderful. So this is a beautiful story. Very very small story. Very simple. A farmer whose corn always took first prize at the state fair had a habit of sharing his best corn seed with all the farmers in the neighborhood. When asked why, he said, it's really a matter of self interest. The wind picks up the pollen and carries it from field to field. So if my neighbors grow inferior corn, the cross pollination brings down the quality of my own corn. That is why I'm concerned that they plant only the very best. Now, to me, it makes me smile. It's such a beautiful story. It's in our best interest to do the best and give the best and raise up others, because that has a direct impact on how we live. This story, it just shows the profound interconnectedness, and I talk about that in the book in tremendous detail, about this interconnectedness of all of it. So you think it's your corn being planted, so you need to hoard it and make sure that nobody else gets the best corn. Otherwise, how are you going to survive if everybody else is going to eat, is going to get the best corn? But this is really, it's just, all these stories is about taking a step back and seeing the profound interconnectedness that your I was reading this one, listening to this wonderful thing, and this man talks about law of attraction, but from a Buddhist understanding, and he said that you have to, in your life, in order for you to manifest more, think about all the good things you've done for people, and let that energy nourish you, and that will inspire you to see how life is bringing you more things, because you're saying, well, I've guided and helped so many people, or I helped plant the best seeds and all the rest of it, and look at the profound impact it's having, instead of approaching it like, oh, I hope nobody else steals my corn seed. What's my family going to eat? And if you can encompass this nature of reality, which goes against your mind, because the mind and the ego wants to hoard it, wants to take it all for itself, and there's this profound teaching that if you want something, go help someone else get it, and in the process you get it. But this is the vibratory field that we live in, is that it echoes out there as a chamber. So what you put out, you get back in. And I wrote a post about the Hermetic principles, and if people are interested in, I'll talk in detail about that. But it's this vibratory principle, and Maria, being in music, and we spoke in enormous depth about that, is that if you want something, then you have to be vibrating at that frequency and that energy. And so the frequency of feeling lack and small and hoarding and selfish, that just attracts more of that. So if you want more of what's out there, become more of that. And that's the whole identity shift as well. In the moment, again, that's the reminder of the moment by moment. Grab the moment and change the identity now and become the person, or the not in the individual human being, but the nature or the vibration of what it is that you ultimately want to attract, and you become that. But it's not a selfish goal, because this, like this man is saying, it is the most selfish thing to do, is to lift others up. And I always say that what I do with coaching is the most selfish thing that you can do, because it has a direct impact on my life and the life of other people. So it's not some kind of I'm a do-gooder. No, I understand profoundly that my giving is what enables me to feel lighter and to nourish myself. So it is in that selfish, unselfish dichotomy that we live in, that we have to live in, but we can't see things from one side only. So at this point, I'll be rounding up because I could go on. I have so many more stories to share, but I'd like to pace it and not take up too much of people's time as well. But good stuff. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in, and I hope you have decided from this to tune in to live moment by moment. And I would like to invite you to make tomorrow, from tomorrow, but starting now, assume the identity of the person that lives moment by moment, and see if you can anchor each moment with as much detail as possible. And by doing that, look at the time, look at the weather, look at who's around you, and anchor in that moment, and make every moment significant. So you don't look for something miraculous to happen where every moment is this miracle. And the more you tune into that, the more you start seeing the miraculous nature of life in every moment. And it is astonishing. So, with that last thought, I'll leave you all and see you all on Sunday or next week. Have a blessed rest of the week. Take care. Bye.